timing of Jesus' birth. And as you and I just read a while ago, some of the very important facts that mentioned in the book of Luke and the book of Matthew. We see it mentioned about Caesar Augustus issued a decree to take a census. That's the first thing. Then secondly, we also see that at that time, Quirinius was the governor of Syria. And then we also heard about that Mary and Joseph traveled all the way from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea. And they went there into Bethlehem, and there also there's appear that there was the shepherd. At the time that Jesus was born, there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby and keeping watch over the flocks at night. So what else? What are the other things that you and I can see from here and explain to us that the time of Christmas is on the winter and is on December? Now, first of all, we are going to look a little bit closer into the timing of Jesus' birth. Now, as we just read a while ago, that Caesar Augustus ordered a census to be carried out in the Roman world. So, if we look from the history, when we look from the time of Caesar Augustus, from the time of Quirinius, and then from the time of the shepherd, we are going to see a very close picture of the time when the Lord Jesus was born. Augustus, according to his history, conducted the census of the Roman people for 3 times. The first time will be from 28 BC. The second time will be on 8 BC. And the third time is on 14 AD. So now we can close up a little bit that we for sure it would be around 28 BC. It is too far. How about the 8 BC? So we are going to look into the 8 BC, talking about the census by the Augustus. And if this census is given by this time, so it means that the Lord Jesus was born around this time. Now, Roman Empire was a very large empire. And before the census can reach to every town and in every other nation that was under the rule of Roman Empire, it could take many years. And especially when it went to a small town like Galilee, it may take many years, and they gave them a lot of time in order to do the census. And you can see that why they do that almost every 14 years or 16 years they are doing, or 20 years they do it again, because they want to make sure of the number. But at the same time, they want to see that there would be certain places have not done it. So they just try to do it. So meaning to say, in order for one census to be accomplished, it could take 1 decade or even 10 years or even more. Then it was implemented regionally over several years, especially among the client kingdom like Judea. Now, another factor that we see that in the book of Matthew also mentioned about the death of Herod. So, if we read carefully, we will know that when Jesus was born, Herod was the king and he was still alive, right? And from the history, they said that Herod could die on the 4th BC or the 1st BC, depending on the interpretation. But for me, I believe that he died about the 1st BC, based on the record of Josephus, the historian, a very famous historian. And he talked about the appearance of the eclipse that happened before the death of Herod. And according to the history, that eclipse, it took place around 2nd BC or 1 BC. So meaning to say that Herod could die by 1 BC. Now, if Herod died by the 4th BC, so meaning to say Jesus should be born about the 5th or the 4th BC, right? Before his death. If Herod was dead by 1 BC, then Jesus could be born around the 3rd or the second BC or even the first BC. So now we can narrow down a little bit. For sure, Jesus was born around the 5th to the 1st BC, depending on the facts that when we decide when Herod died. So for sure, for me, I explained to you because there are many astronomical events that happen, and especially the eclipse that happened in the 2nd and even the 1st BC. So, and that will fit most of the biblical writing like Luke and Matthew. Now, I share with you on Sunday and on New Year about many astronomical events, or we call the celestial body in the heavenly, the things that happen, and all of these things point to the time and signify and tell and predict and reveal that there is a king to be born in the Jewish community. That's very clear. Now, in the 7th BC, we see that in the 7th BC, there was 3 times of the Jupiter and the Saturn conjunction. And this is a very rare. It's happened 3 times. And the Babylonian, the Parthian, and the Persian Empire, the astronomers or the royal astronomer of this empire own record about this event. And they all come to the conclusion. Why they come to this conclusion? Because they can predict, and they can also, maybe they heard about the biblical prophecy about the Messiah to be born in their kingdom due to the existence of the large population of the Jewish people who were taken into captivity into Babylon and Persia by the 5th and the 6th BC. So they said, all of them will say like this. For 3 times, all of these astronomers will also predict the birth of a new Jewish king. Or sometimes they said the rise of the ruler. And many times they said the king from the west, meaning to say about the Jewish according to their geography. So all of these times they wrote and they said the same thing. The birth of a new Jewish king. Now, as I shared to you that this happened earlier than the time before the Magi traveled, so that they could understand what does it mean, and they could make the preparation. Now on the 5th BC in China, there was a period of the guest star, and the Chinese ancient astronomer explained and said that this star destined someone to be great. That is their explanation. They are talking about the changing epoch, a new era. And then on the 5th and the 4th BC, there happened the new star, and this is recorded in the Babylonian and Persian Empire by their own royal astronomers. They record about the new star, and they predict the royal birth or the dynastic change or the changing of a new kingdom. So from the 7th BC to the 5th BC to the 4th BC, now for sure the ancient astronomers can say for sure that these signs are not just by chance. All of these conjunctions, all of the appearance of this unique star, they draw it. I don't put it there. But you can go on the Google or ChatGPT and you can look on the appearance of this star. This conjunction is a little bit weird. And that's why it can tell something special about the coming king. And now on the 3rd BC and also on the 2nd BC, there was a conjunction of the Jupiter and the Venus. Now, the reason why that you can see again the Jupiter, the Saturn, and the Venus. Saturn is closely associated with the Jewish kingdom in those days. Okay, and when we talk about the Jupiter, according to them, it talks about the royal and it talks about the divinity. When they talk about the Venus, it talks about the morning star. Now, you and I can easily understand who is that morning star referred to. The morning star referred to here for sure, that is about the Messiah or the Lord Jesus Christ. It talks about the birth of a new king in the Jewish society or kingdom, and it's happened, and every time all of these conjunction or all of these phenomena happen, and all of the ancient astronomers always predict about who? About the birth of the Lord Jesus Christ as we knew today. Now on the 2nd BC, the comet was out of Altair. Now Altair in the Chinese astronomy in those days, they explain it is the new epoch, but it's also the perfect sacrifice. Who is the perfect sacrifice? No one else except the Lord Jesus Christ. He came as a sacrifice, as an atonement to redeem all of us. So, and then on the 1st BC, this happened very clear. We call the ball star at Aquila. And all of them will say for sure, this, the new king, already been born. So you see that there are signs of prediction about the coming of the king. But there are also the signs that said that the king was already born or was about to be born. And this is the reason why the Magi, they could travel from thousands of miles in order to go and look for the Lord Jesus. So from all of these incidents that you can see, and together with the solar eclipse on the 2nd and the 1st BC, and that's why I believe that Jesus was born about the 1st BC. And that is also go in line with the dividing of the history of humankind, what we call BC and AD. Okay. Both Matthew and Luke recorded that King Herod was still alive, and they say that Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea. So the time right now we can say around that one. So many people said about from 5th to 1 BC. But from my evidence here, that I can say that Jesus was born around the 2nd or the 1st BC. Now, the second question is, you and I begin to ask, what month that Jesus was born? We just mentioned about the year, right? I just give you explanation about the year. And how about the month? Is it in December or some other certain time of the years? Or is this a pagan practice that copied by the Christian in the early church? Now, all of us will begin to see, like I explained to you about the eclipse that happened, and the eclipse happened before the death of Herod. And the eclipse happened on the 2nd BC and the 1st BC. So probably Herod also died around the 1st BC.